Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be discussing the Seattle Seahawks and some of the moves they've made over this offseason and just looking at the future for the organization overall. And this offseason, the Seattle Seahawks have been one of the most active teams as far as acquiring new talent from free agency. And it does look like this organization is going through quite the identity shift. So when you take a look at kind of how Mike Macdonald runs his offense, he really likes to run it through the run game, right? He likes to have a big running back to be able to run that offense through. He likes to win with an elite defense as well as kind of smash mouth football. And then you take a look at kind of how Ryan Grubb ran their offense last year. Geno Smith was third in the NFL in passing attempts. So that's obviously not really how Mike Macdonald wants to run his offense. I think that's the major reason why he cut ties with him and ended up going with Clint Kubiak, because Clint Kubiak runs a very similar offensive scheme. And if we take a look at some of their offseason moves, I think it just reinforces that they are looking to prioritize the run this year, and they are putting the pass kind of on a more of a back burner, more play action to kind of work off that run. And I think that really explains the Geno Smith trade to the Raiders, right? From what the reports are saying, it looks like he was asking for north of $40 million, right? Somewhere in the $40 to $45 million per year. And it looks like the Seahawks were really only willing to offer him about $35 million per year. So once they realized that there was that large disconnect there, they decided to let him kind of go see some other options. And the Seahawks do get a third-round pick in return for Geno from the Raiders. It is number 92, so that allows them to have two picks in the third round there. I think if you look at this trade from a surface level, I think a lot of people will say, oh my God, what are you doing? Geno Smith was great for you. Geno Smith has been doing this for years. And I do agree, right? I do think that Geno Smith is a relatively good quarterback. I think for the Seahawks, it's more of a cap space thing than it is like a player thing, right? I don't think that they necessarily aren't with Geno Smith or don't like Geno Smith as a quarterback. I think that they are prioritizing their cap space and they don't want to strap themselves for too long, and they would prefer to get somebody cheaper when they're prioritizing a run offense. And we have to address the DK Metcalf, obviously wanted out of this organization. He requested for a trade. He wants to play for a contending team. I'm sure he's a little upset about his production last year. DK Metcalf ended the 2024 season with 992 receiving yards on 66 receptions. He had 5 touchdowns. He averaged about 15 yards per catch, and obviously he's about 27 years old this year. Taking a look at Jackson Smith-Njigba, he ended the 2024 season with 1,130 receiving yards on 100 receptions. He had 6 touchdowns and averaged about 11.3 yards per catch. He's obviously only 23 years old. So looking at that production and taking into consideration that JSN is only, just finished his second year of his rookie contract, so he's going on his third. So obviously he's a lot cheaper than DK Metcalf would be. So DK Metcalf, he decides to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I do think is an interesting choice to say the least, right? I mean, the two biggest wide receiver divas on the same organization, they don't have a quarterback yet, so it'll be interesting to see if they decide to run it back with Russell Wilson or if they're going to target Aaron Rodgers. If you were to ask me, honestly, I'm leaning more towards the Aaron Rodgers. I mean, they would only really keep him for 1 or 2 years max. He's probably not going to need that much money, and I think he's going to like the 2 receivers that they have. I just don't foresee Tomlin wanting to run it back with Russell Wilson. I think that he let him go this year for a reason. Transitioning back to the Seahawks, right, they do get a second-round pick from Pittsburgh in this trade, number 52, so they now have 2 picks in the second round. We also saw them let Tyler Lockett go. Obviously, I'm sure this hurt a lot of Seahawks fans at the heart. Tyler Lockett has been with that organization since he came into the NFL. So we've discussed, what the Seahawks lost this year, but, I like to take a look at kind of some of the acquisitions they've made over this offseason. So they brought in Sammy Darnold from the Vikings to replace Geno Smith, and we obviously have to address the question marks with Sam Darnold. He is a good player. He's only 28 years old, but he is more of a game manager, if you will. NFL. He's only had one successful season, or one standout season, if you will, last year with the Vikings, and he was in an incredible situation. And the Minnesota Vikings receiving core is just elite, right? Justin Jefferson is one of, if not the best receiver in all of the NFL. Obviously, Jamar Chase had an incredible season last year with his Triple Crown winner, and I do think there's always going to be a big debate on who's the better receiver. All right, guys, I want to hear your opinion in the comments, so let me know who you got. Who's the better receiver, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson? If you had to choose a number one in the league, who would it be and why? Let me know in the comments. I think the biggest deciding factor for the Seahawks this year is going to be what they do in the trenches, right? I think that's really how you win Super Bowls. The best teams in the NFL have the best offensive line, right? You look at the Chiefs, you look at the Eagles that won last year, right? Especially considering Mike Macdonald wants to run such a run-heavy and play-action offense, right? Like a Shanahan kind of offense. That is built in the trenches. John Schneider, the general manager for this team, has neglected the offensive line pretty much all the way up until this point. So it is going to be a pretty big rebuild for them, which is why I'm kind of harping so hard on the draft picks. There are some pretty good offensive line pieces in this draft, and I really like the acquisition of Josh Jones to the Seahawks, obviously from the Ravens. He is a franchise offensive lineman. He's played the majority of the time as a guard for the Ravens as well as the Houston Texans. I think he's a very good pick, and I think he's going to be a great addition to this offense. So looking at some of the offensive pieces Sam Darnold's going to have on this team next year, obviously JSN will be the number one target, and then they did acquire Cooper Kupp from the Rams. All right, guys, like this video if you're excited about Cooper Kupp coming back to Seattle, and actually let me know in the comments how you feel about it, right? Let me know what you think his production is going to be for next year. And now the Seahawks have two wide receivers, but both of them are most efficient in the slot position. I think this is really why the Rams were starting to move off of Cooper Kupp, because they realized that honestly Puka was their number one slot receiver, and that Cooper Kupp wasn't really working out as far as an outside X receiver for them. Looks like the Seahawks also acquired MVS on a 1-year kind of prove-it deal for $5.5 million to be their deep down the field kind of play action target. Cooper Kupp will be more dominant in the slot position, and they're really going to have JSN as their number one go-to guy. And the Seahawks have that strong running back core. They have Ken Walker III as well as Zach Charbonnet in that backfield there. And Ken Walker is an elite pass-catching running back, so I think that's going to be a great chuck-down option for Sam Darnold this year. Charbonnet was actually really efficient last year when Ken Walker was injured. And although he was technically the backup running back, or like the second string running back, I do foresee it being more of a split backfield this year, as long as everyone can stay healthy, of course. In 2024, Walker posted 573 rushing yards on 153 attempts. He only averaged about 3.7 yards per carry, and he had about 7 touchdowns last year. And Zach Charbonnet, he posted about 569 rushing yards on 135 attempts. He averaged about 4.2 yards per carry, and he did have about 8 touchdowns last year. And this year is the last year of Ken Walker's rookie deal, and Zach Charbonnet only has 2 left of his. So I do foresee them taking a rookie running back in this year's draft class, and being that it's so deep, they could honestly do it in like the 4th or 5th round and still get a great running back for this team. I could see them taking Scatabo in one of those earlier rounds, maybe like 3rd or 4th. And if they want to wait a little bit longer, they could get Ollie Gordon. Either way, both of them are very good pass catching running backs, as well as being big and kind of running through those defensive lines. A lot of the mock drafts that I'm seeing show them taking Tyler Booker in the 1st round, or Tyler Cooper in the 5th round. Either one of those offensive guards would be great options for this team. In 2024, Sam Darnold had an average hold time of about 3.07 seconds. So that's 3 seconds that he's holding the ball every single play as he's dropping back. Right, that's 7th out of all QBs in the NFL. So it's not horrendous, but definitely could be a lot better. I think as long as Clint Kubiak can kind of mix in some short passes to start off the game plan, right, make sure that Sam Darnold feels confident going in, I think they'll be just fine. And they re-signed Jaron Reed as well as Ernest Jones. So they re-signed some of those veteran pieces. I do foresee this defense, being a pretty good unit next year. Last year, the Vikings, they really ran a more pass-heavy offense. And on the Seahawks, it's going to be more run-dominant, right? So Sam Darnold's going to be making less attempts per game, right? I think the pressure is going to be taken off of him a little bit. The defenses are going to be, selling out to the run, which will open up some passing lanes for Sam Darnold. I think that as long as the Seattle Seahawks continue to address the offensive line, just like they are, right, I think they're going to be just fine. They need to make sure they give Sam Sam Darnold the time that he needs to make those passes, as well as giving their running backs the holes that they need. Just like I do in every video, I like to give my projections for kind of what this team's going to look like next year in the 2025-2026 season. I do foresee them having a winning record at the end of the season. They might lose one more game than they did last year, so they'd be looking at like a 9-8 record. I don't foresee them winning their division by any means. I actually have the Rams winning that division, but that'll be the topic for the next video. Anyways, I think that wraps up today's video. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe for more football content just like this. But the Red Zone guy is signing out. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it.